Merry Christmas, everyone. It is Christmas in Australia, and I realized today that I actually didn't make any of the English best decks kind of thing that I do for set 5. And set 5 is like the best set. Well, not really the best set, but the biggest set out in quite a while. Releasing a bunch of cool stuff. So it's like a Christmas present, right? I'm going to give you decks. This is what this channel usually is all about. Just deck lists, and now you get it for Christmas. Yeah, so here's we only have five best decks coming out of set 5. Some of them are pretty normal, like you definitely know what they are, but I guess some of them are a bit more surprising. All of these decks have topped somewhere, and they vary in terms of efficacy. I think most of them are like tier 1, tier 1.5 or 2, whatever you want to call it. Spoilers, Vaga is probably the weakest deck out of the lot. But let's kind of get started. First off, we have Leal. All of these deck logs will be in the description below. Yeah, first deck of is Leal. This is one of the strongest decks coming out in the format right now. I think the JP side is pretty much confirmed on like what the builds kind of are. There are like 2 builds. This is the one that came second at Nationals. It was running the Catapult combo, right? The Thagria Wisdom and Sergion, you know, that 3... Well, you're definitely playing Sergion. But this came second there. This was actually not as popular until this came out, like until Nationals. And I can say that after that, in like the SCA regions, the Catapult version of the deck is the one that has been taking a lot of top slots. You can say that there's a lot of theories. This deck is much more explosive. If you're playing Leal Mirrors, this is something that will put you over the edge. If you're able to just kind of combo off with the Teeth Felts early on, that will definitely give you an edge in the mirror. So in terms of how this will translate into the English format, it's a bit different. English, we don't have things like Love and Berry. We don't have like other collabs like V-Spro and things like that. So there's less other decks to worry about, but at the same time, that means you're probably going to see a lot more Lydras and a lot more of the Leal's mirrors. With us, we also have a much more leeway when it comes to making top cut. You can go X1 at least without wearing that diversity cut. So playing something that is a bit slightly more high roll, slightly less consistent, can work out pretty well as well. So this is pretty much perfectly positioned for the format. Apart from the Catapult stuff that we have, the Teeth Felts and all that, the main combo is the Nilbarus. This is something I think most Leal decks have been playing most of the time. It's just really good now. When you combo with just everything else is your energy outlet, lets you stack the top deck, or kind of not stack the top deck, make your top deck after attacking much more trigger possible, you know? So you can kind of hopefully get a trigger on defensive and just slow down the game even more until you just kind of outgrind your opponent. In terms of the Gabrielis and Gabrielis like numbers, most decks have just been running 2, and then most decks are just running the Leal. Well, pretty much like 95% of them are running the OG Leal as the first ride, just because you always confirm that the Divine skill are ready to go in aggressive matchups. It does come up, right? Early Divine skill usage does come up, so yeah, that's there. And then later on, you always confirm this Leal in your soul, which is pretty good, right? So that's pretty much the entire deck. There's a variation. I'll give you a quick variation. This is just from Japan, a bit small, but you can see very similar. This is the Valtrosa kind of combo where you just take out the Teeth Felts. They've been putting in Valtrosas. Catawalas. You can still put Catawalas in the in the other list. You can just find space for it. A couple of them, not as much as you think, but yeah, just a lot more space on other things, and you're not relying on the T-Felt combo, which is fine, right? It's fine. But this is just a quick list. This also came top 8 in I think this is a Riz's list. Came like top 8 in Nationals as well, and this is just a good base to kind of work from. No tricks. Doesn't really have any like extra like random techs. I guess the maple you can count as techs, but it's just like a very good list to kind of go off. If you don't like maples, add like a 4th Altrosa, etc. like that. Then we also have Lydra. So Lydra lists are pretty much like very similar. I think this is first place Thailand, or no, third place Thailand, but most of these Lydra lists are literally just the same. It's like the Shoujo Doji of the meta. Big power, big power, and same list most of the time. Most decks in Japan now do not run the Clarence. They don't like counter charges, but in English, everyone loves counter charges. So we're keeping at least one in. If you don't like the counter charger, you can just change this into a Shamnet, or a Saphira, or even more of the Squirrel. right? So this is just kind of your high roll potential. There's a lot of different ways, like different flexes that you can do, right? -1 charm net to add more scrolls. It really just comes down to how many scrolls you want to run. That's pretty much it. So you can like even take out Sephiroths or scroll, like yeah. Mythiarch Habitat is actually pretty good. If you're running like a deck that has a lot of 4Xs, this is basically the 5th copy of a lot of things and helps you dig. So I actually really like X copies of this deck, this card. Sorry. And yeah, this deck is just, again, very, very insane every turn. As long as you draw the pieces, you're going to ride up. Like, going first, you get, like, 3 Infinity Eye markers on your side. And you can just kind of snowball from there and, like, rush out your opponent. And make, like, 5 attacks. 4 attacks if you're CB locked. But, hey, 4 attacks already is, like, pretty insane. So, again, like, we know this deck is, one of the top 2, right? And it's definitely gonna do very well. The other deck we're gonna take a look at is Vaga. This is Tokushima first place, right? It actually came first in one of the regionals, but it actually came first. Like, it still had some good showings. It's definitely the weakest, I think, out of all the top decks that I'm showing today, because it's literally just Vaga except doing the same thing. So if you like high rolling with Vaga, if you like hitting triggers, then this is still the deck for you. If you're not good at hitting triggers, then there's actually a lot of decks right now that are all about just playing the game and not super reliant on triggers because their power lines are so good. So if that's the case, then you have options. You still have options. This one is not running the glaive. I actually do like the glaive a lot, right? The other grade 3 that doesn't die. But yeah, this one is not running it. You can find spaces for it, like things like Benaya are replaceable. But yeah, it's the same list, right? You, instead of like rewriting Vaga, you go into Vaga Drag Res, and then you start retiring the whole board instead. And then also, I guess this one is not running the Summit Flare Dragon to help you search for grade 3s. I've seen decks in the beginning run a lot. Now they kind of run like 1 or 0. So it's really up to you. But yeah, this is pretty much your standard Vaga list. It's showing some results and is still relatively threatening. You have to be careful when facing this. Now we're going to move on to the more interesting ones. So this is Leal. So yeah, the biggest problem with Leal in English right now is that we don't have the Furia, which is the Shenri clone. And that's like pretty strong. But luckily for us, Mr. Derek Dow already topped with this list in Malaysia. BCS Malaysia, which is English format. And he came top 16 there. So this is a Leal list that is confirmed to be good, right? It's confirmed to be effective. Now, what did he change? He added some extra Orleans. I know people run Orleans in some of the other older Japanese builds. But it's not like it's like a flex slot, right? And this is pretty much a flex slot. Also running 3 of the Ditanas as well. And these are just like decent cards you can throw down early. Well, at least Ditana, Orleans can help you Soul Blast and get a bit more advantage. But it's like a grade 2, right? So you can like throw it down, turn it sideways, bash your opponent. Still works pretty well. But yeah, these let you push the early game. And still, like, Furia is good, but the main game plan of this deck really hasn't changed. It will turn 4, hit its divine skill pretty consistently, and then kill you. And that's just how the deck works. It's very uninteractive. It does its own thing. It will always just do that. That's this one solid game plan. It's only linear, super linear game plan. It'll just keep on doing it every turn. Well, every game, not every turn. Every game will just keep on doing it, and then you'll just eventually die. And like the power lines this deck hits is actually really, really insane. So yeah, that's why all these Dark States pieces are going up in price a lot. Like Avarice, this thing is insanely priced now. It's just, yeah, this deck is really good. So if anyone says Leal doesn't work anymore because of the lack of PR in English, they're totally wrong. This deck is actually just still really, really good. It's honestly really good. Of course, Levidras, Rezal, also top decks, but this is up there. I think this is better than Vaga, to be fair. So don't look down on this deck. Yeah, and lastly, we have is the Elita Gamma deck. Now, I think a lot of people have been talking about this on Twitter. There's a lot of builds that have been floating around for this as well. This one is one that topped in Japan, and this is on a team that brought 2 Elita Gammas in their list. How did they do that? Well, one guy just ran an Ava in their Ride deck to get around that Ride deck restriction, and then just ran 4 Elita Gammas. Now, why is this deck good? And I'm sure some of you guys have already said this build sucks. Now, I'm gonna throw this out there. This build, like, there's a lot of experimentation going into it. This is probably the most how do you say, the most normal Elita Gamma you'd probably see, right? It's still running heals. It's still running 4 PGs. It's still running 4 Persona rides. All of that, like, can be changed, funnily enough. And a lot of people have been experimenting different builds with that. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys to kind of, tweak this build to kind of maximize its potential. But the core is still there. What this deck does is that you got 2 new cards. The first one was Jumbo Crusher. And this lets you have, this guy just attacks and gets like 10k in a crit. And draws a card. But it's not limited to once per turn, so you can hit like ridiculous like crit thresholds to just kind of kill your opponent, right? And this guy can keep on being restood by Elita Gamma as well, which also does not have a once per turn restriction. So you stand itself, you stand the funny guy, Jumbo Scruncher, repeatedly and get a bunch of triggers, get a bunch of crits on him, and just kind of like wombo combo your opponent out of the game. How do you get that many set orders in your like set order zone though? Well, you look at this when you place it, you look at top 5 and you put as many of them there as you want. But you also got a new card as well called Moi Flash, and this lets you, this has a very funny interaction. The English is kind of bad on this card, but what you can do is you retire this unit and reveal 3 or more different set orders from your hand. So it sounds like you have to reveal 3 like different set orders, but you can reveal like 10 set orders from your hand. They just have to have 3 of them has to be different, right? And then you put all the set orders down into your order zone, and then you proc all their on-play skills. Well, it's not really a place. Most of them are just put, but like, for example, if you put like 3x of this down, you draw like 3 cards, right? So you have like this and like the boosting set order as well. They all come into play and draw a card. And then it'll just proc a bunch of things, like the Shadow Army tokens will come out as well. This won't. This will only proc off the the draw will only proc off the Elita Gamma, but you get to soul charge. I wouldn't soul charge one though. But yeah, you kind of get the idea. You can kind of plus a lot by calling a bunch of these set orders down, and then you cash them in for like wombo combo attacks. And yeah, because of these 2 new cards, especially Moi Flash, is really what made the whole deck work. Because now you're not stuck with a hand full of set orders. You plop them down and just kind of combo off like that. Now, the main core of the deck is literally like these couple of cards. So, Elita Gammas, you figure out how many you want to run in the deck. Moi Flash, I'd say, is like 3 or 4. This is like, you only really need 1, but you always want to see it. You also always want to see some Savoids, because this kind of lets you keep on grabbing Elita Gammas from the set order zone. Also, this one is not running Tectian, it's the Penguin, right? But if you run like Tectians as well, you can kind of keep on cashing in and grabbing set orders from your deck to combo with Moi Flash, and then eventually you will, compress your deck a lot and then just kind of hit triggers more often, as well as having a decent hand. So this one's not running the Tectian. I would say you should run the Tectian, but it means that you have to cut things, right? You have to cut things like this. The Sentinels, for example, maybe you don't run 4. I've seen people run 0, and I've seen people run 2, right? You have to cut that, or you start cutting Persona rides. And in case you still don't know what a Tectian is, it's this thing, right? Aiding Monster Tectian. Yeah, this can help you grab set orders, and then you can kind of put them more down with Moi Flash. So anyway, those are the main lists so far. All of these have shown results either in Japan, and in Derek's case, in English. I'm sure... especially with things like the Elita Gamma list, we will be seeing a lot more innovations here, because there's a lot of eyes on this. I'm gonna be real. There's a lot of eyes on this list, so I definitely think we're gonna see a lot more innovations here, and it should be very, very exciting actually. So that is all the cool decks from Set 5. There's actually 5. It's crazy. Set 5 has released like at least 5 meta decks. So that's a lot more than what the other sets did, except for Set 1. So yeah. That's that. Let me know what you guys all think in the comments below. All right. It's a really exciting set, and have a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. All right. Bye.